Site analysis is only useful in your architectural process if you're making things clearer. There are so many considerations for us to absorb when designing a building on the site. Understanding the layers that make up a location, its character, its adjacencies, and its topography. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to turn a complex DWG sitemap into a clean, professional site analysis drawing, and make the most of it by using AI features to visualize it in minutes. I'm Chris, a UK-based architect, and in this video I'll be showing you how to create a professional architectural site drawing. I'll be guiding you through the step-by-step process of importing and scaling a DWG map, styling the map for clarity and leveraging AI to create powerful site representations, creating a clean site layout page, and finally exporting and sharing for our clients and collaborators. I'll be working in Rayon Design, a new-gen effortless CAD tool for architects and interior designers, where you can go from A to Z architectural documentation in a collaborative space. And with Rayon's new AI panel, the process is even more seamless. You can create your free account to follow along with the video using the site plan template. Or if you prefer, you can come back to this tutorial and apply those processes for your own site. So if you're ready, let's get started. Let's start by importing our site DWG. Okay, so this is my home screen, and I'm going to start by importing a DWG. So you can see up here, I've got my variety of past projects, and then I've got import, which is up here. Now I'm going to go to my desktop, and I have this DWG site plan. So you can either find these online, or you can purchase one for your site. So I'm going to open, and I've got options here. So it says the import of the DWG, questions over import hidden layers, import empty layers, import blocks with their instances. So I want to keep all of those off to keep my model nice and clean. So I'm going to press import. It'll just take a second to convert it. And then it will ask you to draw a line by clicking on 2 points. So for example, I know that this edge of my site is 80 meters. So that looks perfect. So I'm going to press continue. So that's really just a check. So if you're getting your DWG from a reputable source, it should come in at 1-to-1 basically. So there we have our site DWG. And my exact site is this parcel of land here, just at the end of these variety of houses, which is off of a main road. So that's my DWG layer. And we can go over to layers, and you can see import. So that's where all the line workers come in. And because it's coming as a DWG, you can see the different layers that are there. So things around the roads, watercourses, lines, heights, contours, building outlines. So for example, all my building outlines are on one layer, which when it comes to adding tones, colors, stylizing sort of features, that's really, really helpful. So the thing I'll start off by doing is to make sure that this is my my base level. So one thing I want to do is create a new layer. So when I add information, it's on a new layer. So we'll call that working layer for now. As good a name as any. And I will just lock my existing layer, and that's really just to keep things in place for the time being. And then when we work, we'll use that existing layer as a background. Now to define our site and key elements. Okay, the next thing I want to do is to create a circle around my site. So I would normally create a circle that shows the extent of the site, that nicely sort of captures my site and some key elements of the surrounding. There, for example, so that's sitting on my working layer. Now everything else I want to clear out for the moment. So I can use the trim tool. So what I do there is I select my border, if you like, and then I can press trim. So that lives down here, which is here. I use the shortcut, which is TR, and that speeds things up. And you can see, just like you would see in any other sort of CAD model, you're basically going round and trimming off those line elements that sit outside of your boundary. And really that's just about sort of focusing the eye onto a certain area, and also it creates a nice sort of zone within my sort of diagrammatic page. Let's just take a second. Okay, and then I can just clear out the line work that sits outside of. Okay, nice and clean. So I can create a new line style here, and I'll create a stroke here. Let's make it a bit thicker, and we'll call that, so we can create a line style based on that. So you see there it says save style, so I'm going to call that outline, for example, and that will go into my style library. So styles here. So this is where the variety of styles live, and you'll see there it says outline. So those are my different variety of styles that I can apply. So next, having a look into the existing CAD information, I'm going to have a look at contours. So you can see there at the moment, those contours are quite dominating on the lines. So what I want to do is detach that style, and I'll create a new style. And maybe I'll do these as a sort of a dash. So you can see there, if you increase the dash number, it will be a wider gap. Maybe let's make that 10. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Let's just select all of those. Maybe change the color to a sort of a mid gray. And then again, I can create a new style, and I'll call that contours. And again, because they're on a layer, I can easily turn those off and on just to clear things out. Now we want to have a look at the actual building. So it's always good for them to sort of pop off the page. So you'll see here, if I just click on one of these, they're on the layer building outline. So I can find that layer, open up all the paths that sit on that layer. I can detach the line style, make that a bit thicker, and call that building outline, if I can spell. There we go. And now they all pop off the page, which is exactly what we want. Okay, the next thing I want to do is highlight our site. So we can see here, this is our parcel of land, which is our site. So I'm going to create a new style. So I'm going to detach this one, and I'm going to have a nice red line boundary around our site. Make that nice and thick. I might remove the dash, create a new style, and call that site boundary. The other thing I can do is add a fill. So you can do that in one of two ways. So if it's a continuous shape, like this one is, I can add a fill to the site. So that could have a color, it could have a opacity to it. So let's set that at 10%, let's say. If not, I could use the bucket tool. So let's just take, for example, the bucket tool, which is down here, and that will allow you to paint any of the objects that it sees that are in a continuous shape, for example. So one thing we could do is add a new layer. We'll call that fill, and I could go around and I could fill the different buildings that we've just made, help them maybe stand out. So you can see there where a different line segments a space, it reads it as two portions. So just be careful when you're doing that. Okay, so we've got those areas filled, and I'm going to put them on my fill layer. So the first thing I want to do is create a new style. So I'm going to set that as a solid white, and I'm going to say block fill, for example. Now I'm going to move this down to be behind the line weight, and that means you can see the thickness of the lines coming through. Next, I'm just going to group those elements, and then I'm going to duplicate them, make sure that they're aligned, and then I'm going to go into that group, and I'm going to detach that style and change the style to a semi-transparent color, which you can see here. Okay, and then I'm going to select everything in that group, and then I'm going to move it across, and that means we get a nice little shadow effect. And you can obviously play with that just so it looks right. Very quickly, it just helps it pop off the page. Yeah, looking good. So I can then turn back on my contours. The other thing I can do is obviously highlight things like the roads. So again, I can change my line style, so I can detach these line styles. I'll create a new style, and I'll call that road, and I can make that line a little bit thicker, 0.5. Yep. And then I can just go round using the picker tool to then align that style. So as you can see, I just select the lines and then use the picker tool. We're very quick. Okay, looking good. So just with a few different line styles and implementing our line weight, you can see the drawing is starting to become a lot more legible. Let's clarify the elements with color and line styles. So next we want to start thinking about colors and fills to sort of describe our hierarchy of spaces. So you can see these areas here are sort of residential plots. So let me just turn off my contours, just so we don't get interrupted with those. But I want to sort of distinguish those as that are part of a sort of residential curtilage versus those which are a part of a sort of wider landscape space. So for that, I can use my bucket tool again. So I'm going to select fill again, and I'm just going to do one area. So again, I'm going to give this let's say a sort of yellow color with a high level of transparency, maybe something a bit duskier. Yep. Save a style, so we'll call that residential, and then I can literally just go around a new layer. We'll call that landscape fill. Make sure that's selected, and I'll put that to the back. Very good. So you can see there it's really just about any of the plots that have more of an urban type use. Okay, so those are my sort of urban blocks, and now I can set up a similar template for my landscape based designation. So let's say that sort of color. Again, I can save a style, so we'll call that landscape, and I can just go around, make sure that my style is picked onto there, and then I can start looking good. Now I can turn those fills back on, and then lastly I can add a color for our roads. So again, I just want to add a style. Let's detach this one, make this let's say a sort of purpley color. Again, I can save the style. I'll call that roads. I can go through, make sure I'm picking that as a style. So very simply, we can start to add all that information in. I'll put all those fills to the back so you get the line weight through. And again, I can turn on the contours. Okay, now that's the sort of the base map created. Now I want to kind of think about those main elements of the site. So one might be the routes, so highlighting those. So one thing I would do is have something like a curved line highlighting this main crossroad. So what I like to do is create a line off of the page, for example, and then create a route that basically traces, you know, the route of a person or a vehicle that may be moving along that road. This was quite nice to end that off the page. Now again, we can create a nice strong style to that. What color should we use? A brighter purple maybe. So we've got one there, and then again I'll do the same with a curving line. Okay, make sure that we're using the same line style. Create a very simple triangle shape for the ends of my line. Add a fill to that, make that a solid, remove that line, and then I can use that at the end of my line style. Copy that down. Now I want to make sure that that is on a new layer, so it appears above everything on the drawing. So I'm going to call that annotation, for example, and then put those on that layer. Okay, make sure my arrowheads are on there as well. Perfect. Okay. Other factors that I'd want to consider on site are things like the environment. So I've been able to find the solar paths for this site, which I can import. Perfect. Let's bring those in. So you can see here we've got three different paths. One will be the summer, one will be the autumn and spring, and one will be the winter, centered on our site for our location. So I can change the line styles here. So again, I'm going to detach the styles. I'm going to make maybe a mid-red one for the winter. Change these colors to be the same. And then we'll have our curving line for the path of the sun. Same thing on these. So we'll attach that style, and I'll make this more of a mid-orange color. Again, we've got our path. Perfect. Our sun. And then we've got our summer sun, so it's obviously rising earlier in the morning and setting later at night. And we'll use a yellow color for that one. Perfect. Now, what I want to do is be able to combine all three of these drawings together. So I'm going to group the summer, I'm going to group the autumn, spring, and then I'm going to group winter. And then I'll just keep one of these and I'll adjust the line style again. So it's a nice dashed line, copy across these so they're all on the same axis. Perfect. Let's get rid of those. Let's put that on a new layer again and call it solar path. And then I can center it on our site. Maybe make it slightly bigger. Brilliant. Let's make sure it's on the top. Yeah, looking good. And then last of all, I might do something around views. So again, I'll add a new layer again and I'll say views. Taking a line tool, I'm going to set this as my center again. And so we've got sort of our boundary. So coming from the center of our site to our site boundary. And again, got this view over this sort of dip in the landscape and create an arc. And I can put that on our views level. And then I can add a fill to this. I will change this color. We'll make it blue maybe. And I'll make it a slightly thinner line. So again, I can pick a style, match that, match the color, detach that style, and put a blue fill on it. I mean, what about if we said that was off the page? That would be quite good, yeah. And then maybe this could be the arc. Yeah, that would look good. So let's say we do that instead. So I can trim those two lines. And then we'll put this one on our view again. I'll trim it. There we go. I'll turn everything off like that. And then I'll add a fill. Make sure it matches that one. Make sure my line matches that one. We're good to go. There we go. That's quite compelling. So you can see there we've tried to understand the routes, the views, and the solar path. And then one final thing I could look at is the topography. So we've got those contours on there, but it's not really clear what they're doing. So what I can do now is I'm just going to turn off these different elements which you've added, and I'm going to get the contours which are here. I can turn off the rest of my import layer and use them like this. So with this selected, I could start to fill them. And if we said that our high point was the lightest, so we can detach that style. We'll call this contours. So this would be our lightest. So we'll say this is at 0 fill. And then we'll say at every layer that we go down, we'll add 5% maybe. Let's see how that gets on. So the next contour is then 10. The next is 15. And then so on. There we go. So let's make sure all of those are selected. They're on the working layer. And then I'm going to bring that working layer back up, turn everything back on, and then I'll make sure that my annotations are above that. And then what I can do, just go in and adjust those. So it's a little bit of trial and error. So we'll say that actually that's a little bit strong. So we'll say it's 3, 6, 9. There we go, spot on. Yeah, I think that looks good. So now we have a feel for how the landscape is sort of falling away from us. We're on this sort of ridge looking over. Now we can add some contextual images and start exploring AI styling. So we've explored the sort of diagrammatic aspects of the site. Now let's add a little bit of feeling to it. So I can import some images. So for example, we've got this wider landscape image of the view over the valley, which is basically what that long distance view is like. Now, again, I'm going to create a new layer, call that images. And I'm always thinking about my sort of presentation at this point. So you can see here, I've just removed the background. And I'm wondering whether that will sit quite nicely in this area here. I think that works quite well. I'm just going to crop this in slightly. And that's quite a nice idea though. So you're sort of showing that view that's coming out of those two areas. Again, we can add a few different images. So we've got an image from the main roadway, sort of meandering country road, and a view looking into the fields. Again, we can crop those so they're the same size. And then even things like, so this area up here is an old horse riding school. So we could introduce things like little pictograms, for example, that talk about, you know, what happens in a place. Again, I'm just going to remove that background. It's come in very low res, so I'm going to try the upscale tool. Yeah, perfect. I'm going to take the color out of it though and brighten it up slightly. Perfect. And then maybe make that, yeah, looks good. And we'll do a little pull out to that. So that's my line style. And I can do exactly the same thing with something like one of the neighboring buildings, for example. So this farmstead down here, again, I can crop this, take my sort of line idea that I've used, shrink this down slightly. Again, I can edit that. I can remove the background. Quality looks okay. I'll take the saturation out, make it slightly lighter. Yeah, looks good. And again, just use that. Put these on top. That's a nice little selection of images and ideas. The other thing we can do is explore the AI tool. So one thing that I think will be really interesting is thinking about the contours. So let's just clean this drawing up. So I'm just going to copy everything across and create a clean version that doesn't have the overriding lines on it. So there we are. And then just turn off the contours. Right. So that gives us this sort of soft gradient image. So let's jump into the AI chat. And what I want to do is add a screenshot. So I'll put a screenshot around my drawing. I'm going to go to tools and I'm going to go to stylize. And in my head, I had this idea of this clay model. Contour site model. That's really interesting. It's got quite a nice quality to it. I wonder whether we could use that and remove the background. Yeah, perfect. So that's the sort of contours explored. Let's have a think about another one. So again, let's turn the layers back on. So let's turn off the solar path. Let's see what it makes of a realistic version of this. So let's try again, add screenshot. And we'll go to render. And we'll say, really interesting. So one thing I might do is increase the brightness of the image. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we can insert that. And then lastly, let's just try one based on a very simple, the color out. Turn the sun path. Okay, there we go. Let's see whether we can create a 3D axonometric of this. So again, I'm going to go to screenshot, take a screenshot of this, go to generate axonometric. Yeah, done something intriguing with it. Let's see if we can ask it to be a circle. Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay, so again, I can edit the image, remove the background, go from there. Okay, I think that's given us enough options to be getting on with. Let's add some of the key information using text. Okay, so we can finalize the drawings with the last bit of text. So our text tool is down here, and I'm just going to put some direction points on here. So southwest, for example, for here. I'm going to set a title size, and I'll call this style title. I'm just going to change the color so it matches this purple color. There we go. So southwest, northwest, north. Okay. And then I'm going to create a subheading tag. Equestrian school. Make that 2. I'm going to make that black so it matches the style of the surroundings. Save that as a style, call it subheading. I can spell. And again, over here, we'll call that historic farmstead. And then we'll call this one view onto grassland. View onto country roads. Onto local buildings. Okay. And then maybe key viewpoint onto valley or towards valley. Perfect. Okay, and then I'll just add some titles to these as well. Aerial view, site contours, and site axonometric. They should be slightly larger, so we'll detach that style and make them 4. Get that one looking good. And then maybe here we've got these as a larger scale and they sort of rotate around. So this was spring / autumn. We want to make the color to match these. There we go. And then this one to match the other. So you're kind of reading them as they go around. Okay, I think that's got all the clarity we need. We can now organize our layout ready for review. So we'll jump over to our paper canvas. So because there's no pages created currently, it says your paper canvas doesn't contain a page. So we'll create a page. We will set that to A3. Now I want to have 2 of those. Now I want to go into blocks, libraries, and then find a title sheet. I've just got title blocks here. Maybe go with this one. Yep, that one's good. Copy that across. Obviously I can fill in all the information with the title block. So it has all these instance properties that I can fill in with the project type, the project name, the number, for example. And then next I want to go back to my layers and I want to add a view. So we'll view basically the model canvas. We're taking a window, a snapshot of it. Now I'll crop my boundary and then I want to have my drawing at 1 to 500 is a good scale for site drawings. So that's looking good. The line weights look good. Yeah, not bad. And then same again for the other views. I mean, obviously these are more visual elements, so the scale is less important. Just going to get that looking good on the page. Bring out my cop boundary. Maybe I'll just jump back and move that piece of text down slightly. Yeah, looking good. We've got our north point on there as well. So yeah, these are looking good to go. With the layout completed, we can now export our presentation. With our sheets finalized, we can do a couple of things. So I can export them as images. So if we just go to export, I'll go to images and I can choose a page. And I would just export that as a PNG. So I can change the file name, I can change the quality, so low, medium, high, and that would just export as a single image. Similarly, I can export a PDF from exactly the same window. Again, I could choose multiple drawings or 1 or 2 of the pages. So choose PDF. Again, I can choose the quality and the file name. That's not the best way to do things in Rayon though. The really helpful tool in Rayon is our share button. So our share button lives up in the right hand side and I can either share this with a collaborator. So whether it's my boss, a colleague, someone I'm working with, and I can invite them as a viewer. So they'll be able to view my drawing set, so my sheets, and they'll be able to comment on it. And they'll also be able to annotate it. So if they've got any comments, if they want to add something to it, all I need to do is add their email in there, set them as a viewer, and they'll receive an invite to be able to do that. If I want to issue this to a client, the best way to go forward is presentation. So presentation here, so you would swipe that toggle, and that basically takes those PDF images and then presents them on a web page. So it basically, you take a link for your client, so you can either copy it, so copy it and send an email, or we can open it directly from here. So I'll open this quickly, and you'll see there perfectly presented our first page and our second page. So we could just send that link to a client and they can view it in browser, which is spot on. The really cool feature is that if I close that window, if I were to make a change to this drawing, so say I added a red circle for some reason, if I made the drawing different, or if I took on some of the comments that one of my collaborators mentioned, when I went to share that again, you'll see this little arrow symbol that will update the link. So the link stays the same, the presentation at that link gets updated, and now you can see when you go to that link, you'll see the changes that have been made. So that's really, really helpful. I don't have to resend a link. I can use exactly the same one. I'm just updating the presentation at that link. Perfect. So that's it. That completes this workshop on creating a clean and clear site analysis drawing. With this workflow and the integration of AI, you can get to grips with your surroundings quickly, communicate your findings more clearly, and deliver professional level analysis without leaving your browser. If you're looking to speed up your architectural process or elevate the quality of your work, Rayon Design is the tool for you. With Rayon, you can go all the way from concept development to a fully fleshed out, accurate drawing set with incredible workflow enhancers like Rayon's CAD block library, stylizing features, and collaboration tools. And with the AI panel, the sky's the limit. To try out the processes shown in this video, make sure you create a free Rayon account using the link below. It will only take a second and you'll be able to jump in and start exploring the site plan template, utilizing it for your own project. And if you've any ideas for exploring the power of these new AI tools, drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear what you're experimenting with. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.